thank you very much for this comment and the proposal.
So, should we move to the next question from Marike?
Yes.
Please.
Hello, everybody. I'm Marike from Light for the World. I have two questions. Light for the World is active on the topic of rehabilitation in health systems in Ethiopia, Mozambique, and Burkina Faso. And in all three countries, we face that the Ministry of Health is quite positive, aware of that something needs to be done and ready to go, but that it's quite difficult to engage the local WHO office. They're overworked, they have 10 topics, and in all countries we see that a lot of delay is happening actually on the side of the WHO and their bureaucracy to get messages from the global office in Geneva to the country office and the other way around. So I was just wondering if others also face those problems and if you have any good advices on that. And the other issue I wanted to raise in terms of advocacy and getting the picture right, in all three countries, there is very little in the field of rehabilitation, but what is somehow there is a bit of physiotherapy. And what my fear is a bit, and what I see a little bit happening, is that rehabilitation becomes physiotherapy. And so I'm wondering if there is also any good guidance in broadening that picture of rehabilitation and making sure that in the low-income countries we don't end up with rehabilitation is only physiotherapy. So any thoughts on those two topics would be appreciated. Thank you.
Maybe the first topic for Valentina? The first.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think indeed that WHO offices are relevant, but are not a target for this advocacy. As I said in the beginning, it's true that WHO, of course, is concerned. If a resolution would ever be adopted, they will have to provide support to member states. They will be really there, as they are, for technical support, but even more under a resolution. They will also be in charge of holding countries accountable with regular reporting following a resolution. However, I think that we should not consider them as allies or main allies in our advocacy, given the very specific position that they have of being actually those who will be asked to co-implement such an advocacy, such a resolution. So their role, it's a bit sensitive in the sense that WHO cannot advocate actively for a resolution that really needs to be in the hands of states. Of course, I think that keeping open channels, information, it's important, but it's not the key for our advocacy at this stage. Of course, informing, it's relevant. We are doing also this often with WHO in Geneva to keep them updated about initiatives, but not necessarily expecting them to play a major role together with us for advocacy.
Well, just to add and to underline this, in the discussion with the headquarters of WHO, they told us very clearly that they cannot take a leadership to influence the member states. They don't want to do that because this is a bottom-up approach and they have to serve the member countries. So we need to focus on the governments, as Valentina said, in the membership. Of course, it is good to involve WHO also at the country level. I think it is always important to involve, but I think we cannot expect them to take the leadership in the advocacy. They give the technical advice. So this is, I think, very important. The second part of your question was about what we aim at. What is our concept of a good rehabilitation system? And of course, I think we are very clear. Maybe we need to provide more documents on that, but we agree also with WHO that rehabilitation is a multi-professional approach. So we need diverse professions, and we need the OT, we need the prosthetics, orthotics, we need the physical and rehabilitation medicine doctors, and many things to provide a high quality rehabilitation. So the multi-professional and multi-dimensional approach is part of our definitions and our goals. And this also is expressed in the documents, the guiding documents towards implementing rehabilitation in health systems. And maybe you are aware that WHO also is working at the moment, or has published a tool to analyze the rehabilitation in health system, what is already there, to identify and to create plans to implement. And you should look at this, and maybe also if you discuss with governments. So WHO provides the guidance how to analyze, and for instance in this questionnaire, which is called STARS questionnaire, the STARS tool, the list of professionals that should be there is as part of the questionnaire. And we did some of these analyses sometimes with governments, but also with universities. And for instance, in many countries we saw that there are no occupational therapists, there are no rehabilitation doctors, physical and rehabilitation medicine and others, and so we can identify the gap. So our baseline or our framework is exactly what you say, and of course governments sometimes say we have something, we don't need to take action. But then we see in the framework, if we analyze this, there is a gap, and the standard or the guidelines we take from WHO headquarters, because there is an objective part behind that. So I think we have it. Maybe we should take your input that Global Rehabilitation Alliance should summarize this in another fact sheet, what rehabilitation really is. Maybe, Valentina, we have to think about to add something like that.
Hello, any other feedback maybe to the questions or other comments?
David Constantine is on the list.
Yeah,
David, yeah, please.
Boy, where can you just tell everybody where these really useful documents in the presentation? Congratulations, where they'll be available to everybody, so we can spread the word.
Mm-hmm. Sure, of course. We are also using this webinar to collect if there's any feedback on this overall toolkit. And this morning we received, for example, feedback from Venki that we're going to integrate. So as soon as we have all this little final feedback integrated, we will share the entire toolkit, both by email and also it will be made available on the GRA website for downloading. In this toolkit, there will also be the recorded version of the webinar. So for those who could not participate this morning or this afternoon, so that they can have all this background information that we are providing here. It could also be shared. It can also, of course, be shared outside of the GRA. Yeah? If you think that there are other partner organizations that can use it.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other points of discussion? Everyone want to speak up?
Yeah, Alessandro, please.
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much for the explanation, and also it was very interesting, you know, the concept of a broader rehabilitation, and so, you know, it's I know that the situation of rehabilitation, it's a little bit, you know, difficult to understand in various countries, because in some countries some rehabilitation professions are recognized, in other countries they are on the edge to be developed, and in other countries, you know, you can find some kind of rehabilitation, and in other countries you don't find the same kind of rehabilitation. We can have also many examples at the European level. So it's very important that the concept of rehabilitation is enlarged to have all this kind of rehabilitation, you know, osteopaths and not just physiotherapists. And I would like to ask if you plan to have some research on these different levels and recognition of rehabilitation in some countries, or at least in advanced countries in the world, to have a systematic review or something, or a web survey to be filled in, so we can implement our website and we can have a bigger picture of rehabilitation, at least in a bunch of countries, because the situation is absolutely, you know, not easy to comprehend. And, you know, I think we need more clarity about the concept of rehabilitation, the professions who are acknowledged in different countries. Thanks.
Well, this is a very challenging proposal, Alessandro, but you're exactly right. But let's see what the Global Rehabilitation Alliance, together with the members organizations, can do. I think what we really could do, and I have this on my agenda, well, to write an article or a document where we look at the common sense and the common standards we have in rehabilitation and we agree on. And this will be shared, of course, with the member organization, but it needs some time to do that work. I think we can summarize what's there, in coincidence, of course, what the definitions that are already on the floor and also agreed in the Rehab 2030. But it needs to be more concrete to be implemented in the countries. That's very clear. The other thing, I think, is a very good proposal, but we have to think about who can do this. For instance, the Global Rehabilitation Alliance at the moment has no capacity to induce a scientific survey or something like that. Even we are knowing that we need that. So I think the role of the Global Rehabilitation Alliance can say, well, maybe we can come at the end of such a paper, say we need a more systematic approach to compare rehabilitation systems or rehabilitation in health systems, to have a better overview and to learn from each other. But the study itself cannot be done by the Global Rehabilitation Alliance. But to argue towards the need of such a survey, we can do that. But it's a very important point. Thank you very much for this proposal.
Thank you. Thank you.